He's a really good horse, exceptionally good looking, and fast.
Lord Nelson is just a picture type. He's got a beautiful neck and shoulder. He's got a nice hip. He's really strong.
Extremely fast. He's very well balanced. This horse is just an incredible fighter. He's mentally tough. His constitution is just iron. He's as tough, I think, as they make horses.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Keeneland Babies, presented by Spendthrift. I'm Dan Illman, this is Nicole Russo. We're going to take a look at race number 3 at Keeneland on Wednesday, April the 18th. Again, our coverage is presented by Spendthrift. As we throw up the field, Spendthrift is the home of Malibu Moon, the sire of the undefeated Kentucky Derby hopeful Magna Moon, who just ran away and hid from the field in the Arkansas Derby. Has to be one of the favorites for the Kentucky Derby. Race number 3 at Keeneland, of course, 4.5 furlongs. This race is for 2-year-olds, obviously. We've got one Spendthrift stallion represented flat out as the sire of the number 12 Big Bruiser. Nicole Wesley Ward has fairly much dominated as usual, and of course he's well represented in race number 3.
He is, but I do think this is a wide open race. Looking at some of these young horses, I really think that the main body of the field is well matched, and a horse who would be a strong candidate for Wesley Ward is not only on the also eligible list of this overflow field, but the second preference on the also eligible list. So I do think that that opens things up a bit here.
Let's begin with the number 1, Don 2, who's one of 2 in here by the stallion Escandrea, who wins 9% with his 2-year-old debut runners. This is a solid family. The dam a half to a graded stakes winner.
Yeah, that being the grade 2 winner, Live Lively. The second dam, I believe, won her debut. The family definitely gets a little injection of speed and brilliance from Broodmare Sire, elusive quality, a brilliant horse himself. Dan too shows the bullet work at the Thoroughbred Center, a training center here in Lexington, last out.
The number 2 is Wyland by the precocious stallion Yes It's True, who I believe is a 2-year-old winner at Keeneland, first out already at this meet. Wyland sold for $7,000 as a yearling, and this is a pretty hearty family. The dam won 6 races. She earned a 77 Beyer on turf.
Yeah, and I do think this is a speed-oriented and juvenile-oriented family. Yes, it's true, as you mentioned. The Broodmare Sire is more than ready. I think it's speed and precocity on speed and precocity. Wyland shows a very solid work the first weekend of April. The most recent work looks kind of like a maintenance move. This one might be in good order coming in here. The
number 3 is Duke of Monroe. We talked about Duke of Monroe prior to his career debut on April the 6th. He's by Birdstone out of an Empire Maker mare, the 3rd dam, the multiple grade 1 stakes winner Flute. And we pretty much agreed that this one needed distance. He did not break well in his debut. He passed a couple of tired horses, and I still think he needs more distance.
Yeah, very much so. That effort on debut, kind of running by horses late, is definitely what I expected from this one. Probably will improve somewhat with the experience under his belt, maybe a horse to use underneath a little bit, but I do think this one is going to want much more distance to be at his best.
The number 4 is Giant Act, also by Escandrea, like the number 1, Don 2, and considering this pedigree, I'm surprised that this horse wasn't very commercial. He is a half-brother to Classy Act, a graded stakes place dirt router. I believe she might even be on the Kentucky Oaks Trail. And the second dam's a full sister to Champion Tempera.
Yeah, and Tempera, not just a champion, but a 2-year-old champion. So there's definite juvenile ability in the family. Although, I do think that perhaps this one is another one that's going to want a bit of distance. Tempera getting so good later in the year in that juvenile season.
The number 5 is Dusting Brown. Tell us about this stallion, Thoreau, a son of Gone West.
Well, Thoreau is an unraced son of Gone West, as you mentioned. Started off in California, currently standing in Ocala, Florida. 0 for 5, I believe, is our statistic with his 2-year-old debut runners. Has a limited sample of runners, as you would expect.
Although the second dam was a stakes-winning sprinter on dirt at 2 and won her career debut, I look at this pedigree and I see kind of a turfy family, so I'm going to wait for a little more distance and maybe a surface switch down the road. Wesley Ward, represented by the number 6 Wonder Stone. This is a filly taking on the boys. I'm not concerned about that this time of year. I look at this pedigree, I see a lot of distance, I see a lot of turf, but with Wesley Ward training, you got to expect speed first time out.
Yeah, of course. And, you know, we've talked a little bit about at this time, there just aren't the turf opportunities on this side of the pond, the 2-year-old. So it's not necessarily a deader when you see, you know, a turf pedigree in these races, especially with Wesley Ward, who's probably certainly thinking ahead to target for Alaska if he can get a nice crowd of these horses. This one a homebred for the International Don Alberto group, who I'm sure would love to have a runner at Royal Ascot. And as you mentioned, at this time of year, some fillies come to hand a little bit quicker. I'm not concerned also about a filly taking the boys at this in the season.
It looked like that March 5th workout out of the gate at Turfway might have come in company with Odie, who was a speedy runner-up earlier this meet at Keeneland behind uncoupled stablemate Hargis, who was certainly impressive. Wonderstone looks like perhaps she can run a little bit. A bullet workout at Turfway on April the 2nd. The 7 is Dixie Highway. This one is by Arch, a full brother to Maiden Detroit, who made most of his money going long on the turf. There's a little bit of dirt deep in the family, but again, this is a family. I'm expecting distance, I'm expecting grass.
Yeah, very much so. And, you know, Arch and Bruiser Sire Corn, this class both did their work, the dirt. They're both kind of hidden turf plays. You're seeing that now as well. Arch has been blame hiring a lot of the international runners. The Dixie Highway, I think, nail on the head. I would like to see distance and grass for this one in the future.
Dixie Highway, we have a formulator fact. Wayne Rice, it seems like we're picking on poor Wayne Rice. He's a very good trainer. He just doesn't win very often with 2-year-olds on dirt. 1 for 34, a 14-cent return on investment. I've heard some nice things about the number 8, Alwaysmining, and this is a colt by Stay Thirsty, who is a $32,000 short yearling, sold up for $130,000 as a yearling. There is a lot of turf on the bottom of this pedigree, but if you look at this workout, March 15th at the Thoroughbred Center, breezing 22 and change out of the gate. I have a feeling Alwaysmining might be able to run a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I do think you kind of read between the lines that the horse who's growing and maturing and moving in the direction, as you mentioned, sold up by a lot, a short year to, you know, kind of a more traveling calendar later in the year. And that workout at the gate certainly suggests that this is a horse who's continued to mature and who's ready to show some speed first.
The 9 is Imbeingfollowed. This is a $7,000 yearling by Successful Appeal, who is just a very precocious stallion, winning 17% with 2-year-old debut runners. The dam won her debut. She won 13 other races. So this is a very solid family, some precocity in there as well. It looks like, though, this one's been working with a horse that ran up the track earlier this week for this barn.
Yeah, but, you know, I do really love this pedigree cross that we're seeing. As you mentioned, Successful Appeal, a very good 2-year-old stallion, a very underrated stallion overall. I think he's very consistent, very solid, and what a racehorse that mare looks like. This one, the immediate family of a graded place 2-year-old, and a real eye-opener.
The number 10 is Vow Me Now, and I think Vow Me Now is the first horse that was offered in a 2-year-olds in training sale that we've seen on Keeneland Babies this spring. A $70,000 yearling bought back for $90,000 last month, breezed a furlong in 10 and 1. This is a have to get Jets, who got good on turf, but was also very solid as a dirt horse earlier in his career, winning his career debut at 2. There's some class on the bottom of this pedigree, and Joe Sharp is a very sharp trainer.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think that the Sharp barn came into the Keeneland meet ready to roll. Of course, upsetting Lady Aurelia last weekend at the Giants Causeway. Vow Me Now looks like potentially another nice one for the barn. As you mentioned, Get Jets, precocious horse, very fast horse. And Vow Me Now by Broken Vow, who we've talked so much about the unbridled line. Broken Vow kind of maybe the forgotten horse in this a little bit. He does have a champion 2-year-old on his resume a couple years back in Champagne Room.
I thought the 11 Baytown Macca ran pretty well first time out at a big price on April the 6th. A $6,000 buyback as a yearling. You look at our pedigree card, we don't see much. But Baytown Macca broke pretty well, was just simply out-sprinted, and then finished evenly down towards the inside. I thought it was a good learning experience for this colt. He's going to be a big price again. It might be one worth considering underneath.
Yeah, probably the thing that concerns me is that he was kind of out-sprinted early, and I do see a good amount of speed in this race. So he's going to have to, use that experience to get himself away from the gate a little bit faster, I feel. Sire Creative Cause, who of course right now has My Boy Jack as a Kentucky Derby hopeful. Creative Cause is a solid 2-year-old himself. Bruiser Sire Majestic Warrior, that rare son of AP Indy, who was a top-level 2-year-old. So some ability in the family.
Big Bruiser is the number 12, represented by Spendthrift Stallion Flat Out. Big Bruiser sold for $2,200 as a yearling. And while we think of Flat Out as a long-winded top handicap horse, he does very well with his 2-year-old debut runners. 15% winners. You look at the bottom of this pedigree, though, you see distance. And I just wonder if this is sort of a prep race for something down the road. And we'll see this horse eventually mature with more distance in the summer and fall.
I think this horse definitely has the potential to improve. But, Flat Out, as you mentioned, has done very well with his 2-year-olds. They came out running last year, his first crop, at this Keeneland April meet, and that surprised me a bit because I did expect them to be later developing horses, as Flat Out himself was. Long-winded, really, really hard-knocking horse. I expected them to fall in that mode, but they've been good and precocious 2-year-olds.
Really intriguing race, as all of the Keeneland baby races are. Where are you going in here, Nicole? Something tells me the number 8, Alwaysmining, is going to take a good amount of money. We always say watch the board, especially for non-Wesley Ward trainees. I have a feeling Alwaysmining will take some money.
Right. I do think you're going to have to watch the board with this one. Wesley Ward's got Wonderstone in there, who looks like a strong candidate, can't be discounted. I do wonder if people are going to read between the lines a little bit on those yearling prices and on the work patterns with Alwaysmining as we have, because I do think that Alwaysmining could be ready to run with that strong work last out. I am going to watch also Imbeingfollowed and Vow Me Now, as we mentioned. And, underneath, I might look at Duke of Monroe to come running and pick up some pieces to round out a try or round out a superfecta. As we've said, there looks like a lot of speed in this race.
In Ward I trust. Wonderstone, the filly against the boys. Unfortunately, no value, it seems, in this situation, but that's going to be my top pick. I might try to find some value in the single race exotics underneath with horses like Baytown Macca and Duke of Monroe, who you mentioned, and even Dixie Highway, who has a route pedigree but might be running along at the end of this race, especially if the pace falls apart just a little bit at this 4.5 furlong distance. Alwaysmining, one to keep an eye on. I'll go with Wonderstone and Wednesday's Keeneland Babies event. We have split division of 2-year-old filly Keeneland baby races on Thursday, so you're going to want to stay tuned to Keeneland Babies, presented by Spendthrift.